So my bird's gonna join us because she's feeling very crazy today. So I wanted to catch you guys up on things that I've learned from my minimal research so far, just from the past two videos, Putin and then what's going on, because I feel like the average American, or maybe below average, maybe I'm below average of what I know, doesn't know this, because what's in the media is extremely confusing to me. And if you think about it for a little bit, it doesn't even make sense. So I'm starting to connect the dots a little bit more. I don't think that we have all the information, even all the information that's out there. I really don't think that's everything, but it's enough to make it make more sense. So, okay. So we know here's Russia. Russia's huge, and then we have little baby Ukraine, right? And so the way that is perceived in the media is essentially this big bad Russia is picking on Ukraine, right? And trying to overtake them. And Ukraine, in some ways, is comparing Putin to Nazi, because essentially that's what happened in Ukraine, is that the Germans came in saying that they were going to help the Ukrainians, and then some of the Ukrainians, or most of them, believed that that was true, and it ended up that they were murdered and tortured. And so they're comparing that to what Putin is doing. He's invading, saying that he's helping, when in reality he's not. And from what I gather is there's these two little areas in Ukraine that are like independent, right? They're sovereign. So I guess what I understand is that these two pieces that Russia originally said was going to invade because they're sovereign, and this has to do with, like in the previous video, with like NATO and everything, is that he's pushing past those two sovereign areas. That, and because of that, then the US and all these other countries are saying, oh, you've gone too far, you know, you're really becoming, you know, out of control, or a dictator, or whatever. And so that's what's going on there, I guess. I say I guess because, I mean, that's what it seems to be portrayed as. And what I'm gathering is basically, this is stuff that I researched, and people are saying that in Ukraine there are biolabs all over Ukraine, and these biolabs, I don't know if I'm mincing my words or not, but that there are legitimate Nazis that are in place that are helping with these biolabs. Either way, they shouldn't be having biolabs, because that's where you create bioweapons, right? And China is right over here, and we already know now, it's out there now, it's proven, it's not just a rumor anymore, that something was created in a biolab that they weaponized against us, right? And so this is happening covertly to the public, of these biolabs, but the information's been released, right? And in 2014, I'm skipping around, but in 2014 there was a coup to overthrow the government within Ukraine, and this was backed by the United States, different agencies within the United States, not necessarily the president, it's like the former president, and working in tandem with agencies that are in place by Soros, which we know most, well, to tell you, Soros actually helped the Nazis during, World War II. He helped the Nazis. And he admits to it. He talks about it. So even the US, like the ambassador in Ukraine, like they were caught, they were wiretapped, their phones were tapped, and they were talking about who they would put into place in office, you know, and they've had long discussions. So the truth, what I seem to see from my readings and what I've found is that it's true that Putin says that it's overrun by Nazis. I'm trying to help these people. It'd be like if the United States and like Mexico, like there's sovereign parts of Mexico that are connected to the United States, and then they just started like slaughtering a bunch of Americans, and we're like, no, you can't do that anymore. Like, that's not cool, right? And that's like a sore spot for us. It would be like if part of those sovereign places was part of you know, like freeing the slaves and everything, like whatever, the civil wars and everything, and then they started doing that to blacks, like the same things, right? And we're like, that's a sore spot for us, like you need to stop, that's ridiculous, and we went in, right? So that's kind of what I'm seeing is actually happening here. Now, as far as the bioweapons go, that's the thing, is back during NATO, they agreed that Ukraine would not have any nuclear bombs. They gave them up, right? Because of what happened during the war. And so what's interesting is, if, you know, I'm thinking like you have to be extraordinarily intelligent in order to create weapons of mass destruction. And so obviously they turned these scientists and brought in more scientists and have little parts of it that are still created. Like, that kind of seems like that's their loophole, right? That's the loophole that they're saying is, okay, we won't have nuclear bombs, but we're gonna have chemical and biological warfare, like weapons. And who knows, because you have to report if you have nuclear bombs. Who knows what else they actually have that they haven't reported, right? What are they doing? Because it feels like this is the thing, is energetically, psychically, whatever you want to call it, this makes sense, but it feels like there's something more to it. Like, I don't know if it feels solid, or like it's like underground but above ground, like something that would be like put into the ground. I don't know. That could be it, and I'm just feeling it differently, and so I'm not connecting it as that. But that totally makes sense with what I was picking up on. Now, how that relates, other than everything I just said, to the United States, is because I believe that's something else that's going on covertly within the United States, right? Is a lot of these agencies are put into place around here that are creating, see, I don't think that there's necessarily, I don't know if there are biolabs here. I mean, I'm sure there are, but I feel like the majority here is like some sort of like sonic, something to do with like, I don't know, you know, because there's like HAARP, you know, the weather altering stuff. Maybe that's there too, but, and maybe here, there's something else that we specialize in though, that's here. I'm sure maybe there's research for that as well, just like there's research, but there's something else like that affects like this would affect the air. Biological warfare affects the air, it affects your respiratory system and all of that. This is like affecting, I don't know, it's like affecting the ground or affecting the vibrations, affecting this. There's something here, but they're obviously related. That's where I see that working. Now, the thing about Russia that I feel, and how this is starting to make even more sense, is that Russia is a very strong country. They're trying to be completely independent, right? And obviously they don't want that, right? People in power don't want that. They don't want you to be independent, not depending on other people. And so they're becoming too strong, right? Because the thing is what I've compared in the past of like, it's really as simple as good versus bad, or good versus evil, where he's really trying to do what's best for humanity or for Russians. He's really trying to do that. And he's surrounded by these psychopaths, like literal psychopaths. People who, no offense, Washington people, but like, if you know people who are in politics or even in the military, there's some really unhinged people there that just want bad, right? And it's the same thing with the United States as far as them instigating war and instigating problems. Because that's the thing that I was thinking, is like, how does this make sense? Russia's, like, why are we bothered by that? Obviously it's a horrible thing, but why are we getting our noses into what's going on there when this is going to cause a huge problem, right? Why are we allowing ourselves to be in a threatening position where he could just blow us to smithereens? Like, he will literally detonate nuclear bombs on us, and he's not kidding around. That's not an empty threat. I 100% believe him that he will do that if need be. You know, what's he have to lose if they're attacking his country? You know, would you not do that? As a leader, would you not defend your children against attack? So why are we continuously instigating? And that's where everything starts to make sense. And that's where this makes sense, because when people figure this out, like, never mind all distractions, when people figure this out, which I think he's intelligent enough, if you watch the last one, where I think this is part of his plan, is like, this isn't making sense. What's happening is not making sense. And even if it did, it's way too biased. It's way too biased that there has to be so many people around the world and around America that are like, what's going on? What is going on? Why is this so biased? And then it's gonna allow a discussion to happen. It's allow the unfolding to happen, because if we find this out, as massive people come to the correct conclusion that's already been released, when people figure that out, what does that mean for these corrupt agencies that pushed us to harm ourselves, and who pushed things onto us to harm us? They intentionally did that. What does that mean for the government within this country and other countries? That is a direct threat to them. And what does that mean to them? That they're going to be jailed forever? Not to mention, it's a crime against humanity. These are crime. Just like this is a crime against humanity in some ways, this is another crime against humanity. And this isn't something that's new, right? There's a really good book you guys can look into. I haven't read it though, so I can't say. I just know what's in it. I won't get into all of that, but look into, I think it's called Project Bluebird. You can look it up. I don't know if the book would be, you know, like downloaded online. I know it doesn't matter how I know. But anyway, look into stuff like that where it has declassified information of a lot of this. It even has like MK Ultra and all that kind of stuff that most people know about. So this is not far off, right? This isn't so crazy to believe. I mean, we're in it. We're witnessing it. This is like actually going on. And Putin knows, just as I've talked about with Trump, he knows the degree of crazy that happens, right? And they have boundaries, but they've had their hands in it as well, just not anywhere near the capacity that these have been. And it's not I don't know, probably by average person, it's really not that bad. It's not that bad. Especially I don't know. I don't really want to get too much into that, but like, what does that mean, right? Jail, uncovering the connections of the entire world, of how everything's connected. Russia's backed away from everything, you know, like, they're independent. Yeah, they work with China, but it's on a, like, a commodity, right? They're working together in a respectable powerhouse way, right? They don't have their hands in everything like this. And even if they do, I mean, they do and they don't. It's not in the direct crookedness as it is for some other countries, I don't feel. They've done it a lot in a lot, it's not necessarily a smarter way, but it's in a lot less disruptive or like corrupt way. Like, that's just part of politics, or that's just part of protecting yourself, right? Is you have to do all these like secret things behind the scenes to make sure that you have things set in place, because you don't know what other people are planning, right? So you're gonna make sure you do your best, and so on and so forth. So they don't have their hands completely clean, but it's not in this ancient esoteric demonic way. It's not like that. It's not. No, it's not. Not to mention, how do you think these people feel on a personal level of shaking hands with people like Putin or Trump, thinking that they're part of it, you know, and schmoozing up to these people, only to realize that, like, maybe they feel judged, or maybe they feel like they've been betrayed. Custard, please stop. It's not a good feeling, right? So there's also that these personal vendettas against these people, on top of that complete threat that, Custard, please, direct threat that they have on their power. They don't want to get that taken away because they're greedy, they're selfish, they're having fun being demons, right? Like, to put it straightforward, it's very, very dark-sided. And so that's kind of essentially what I see here with Putin, is like, this is an eye-opening experience for a lot of people, and it's really up to people to wake up and realize this and do something, because it's kind of a big FU to people when that happens and then they turn onto their own government. Then now it's imploding within there, right? So it's like evil overplayed their hand, because they're trying to push a certain agenda only to realize that it didn't end up working. Like, people ended up wising up to what's actually happening. I don't know if that's going to happen, and I think that that's kind of where his position is like, we'll take it as it comes. But I do feel like there is a danger here. That's not just me saying it because I don't want to be blown into smithereens. But there's something going on there that they're trying to... It's almost like then he kind of self-eliminates, right? It's like, well, if you don't back down, if you don't... I think that would be probably the smart thing to do, is like back down, because the damage is already done, hopefully, within different countries, as people are like, hold up, warning, what's really going on, right? What's happening here? What's really happening? Because for America too, it's like absolutely outrageous to think that we're involving ourselves in something when the average American is struggling. They're struggling. They don't have time to research all this. They're in debt. Like, and they're purposely put in this position, right? I feel like that's where they want us, as far as like the governmental positions. They want Americans to be, it's middle, I would call it like the lower middle class, in the sense that you still have that grit, but you don't have the resources to get ahead, right? Because everything's being inflated. You don't have time because you have to work all the time. Then after your work, then you're exhausted. Then you got to take care of all this other stuff that's going on in life. Then you got all the problems that they're throwing out into the media. Then if you have time to yourself, then you just want to unwind and do something that's, you know, just to ease your mind. And then it ends up being polluted stuff, you know, that they're pushing out into China, which I said we're China backed, so it's like things that are just lower frequency stuff. So they're not only essentially dumbing us down, but they're demonizing, they're making us become zombies, like really. And I think I said this in one of the other videos, I'm not sure, but literally think about people, like when you do drugs, and they're trying to legalize that everywhere, like it's supposed to be a good thing. I'm telling you, all these drugs, they're ways for entities to enter into you. They're waiting for that in. And for you to be numb to your own feelings and to like things that are actually going on, how do you know you're making the right decision? Just because you're like calm when you're handling it, you never healed from it. You're not actually evaluating it, and constantly you hear people say, I don't know if it's because I'm, you know, on this, but what about this? Or it's like people come up with these radical ideas, but nothing ever gets done. You know, you don't actually do it. Very rarely, it's very rarely that people actually do what they think are great ideas because they're on drugs. So they're creating this culture of struggle so that you can't ever get to their positions. They're greedy. They want the positions for themselves. They want a slave society, right? And they're enslaving people. So that's why they're creating problems. And I think that's what's going on here, is that he's trying to wake everyone up. And he tried to wake everyone up, but I think people prefer to be, I mean, it's true, like people prefer like to not necessarily be gaslit, but people like being lied to. They don't like to hear it straight up. They say that they like to hear it straight up, but when you hear someone say it, then you get offended and you take it personally. So that's a catch-22 with that. But that's basically what I'm seeing. I'm probably skipping a lot of stuff. Essentially this is a good like jump off point for anyone who was in my position, just like the average person or below average of not really knowing what's going on, as like maybe another perspective of things. Not necessarily saying this is true, because obviously I don't know, but I think this is a strong talking points for certain cases that are going on, that will give a bigger spectrum of what reality might be. And then from there, it's kind of like taking a higher perspective, like pulling everything out, and looking at it and saying, so why? Like, why? And I really believe it goes back to people who are in positions of power. Excuse me, there's a gnat. People in positions of power it's crumbling. It's absolutely crumbling right now. And they're throwing everything at us in order to maintain that control. And it's really up to us to figure this out, because they are outnumbered. They have no power without us because there's not that many of them, right? And I'm not saying to go overthrow things or anything, but it's to be informed so that you can take a well-educated stance, which means I have to educate myself even more, but you know, evaluating everything so that we can figure out what's really going on here. What's really, really, really going on before they put us into a really detrimental place. Because in truth, these leaders and these people who are instigating it have safe places they can go, whether it's in underground bunkers, whether it's, you know, an island in Belize, or wherever they're going. They're not here. They don't care about the average person. They don't care about the civilians. They care about themselves. And so all they have to do is cut down the population so it's easier to control, because there's less people there. You know? They don't care. And it's even with some of the stuff that's ever happened, it's like sacrificial, right? So that's also a point that I wanted to make too, is I feel like they're kind of pushing, so it's almost like getting off on the fact that he would be the hands that sacrifice people. You know? It's like some really weird, twisted, dark stuff. That's what I think. It's like trying to push him to be the person who sacrifices. It's like holding someone against their will and being like, you know, hurt that person and them not wanting to do it, and then like, you know, that's kind of what I'm seeing is what they're hoping to happen. And so there's an easier way, or hopefully, I don't know, because there's so much going on, and I feel like this is only one section that I'm talking about. This is only one section. I think there's a whole nother section that's like bigger than this. This is like this big, and then the other thing's like twice as big, and then there's a third thing. There's a third thing. And I think it has a lot to do with human trafficking. I'm not gonna lie. There's something here with human trafficking that's involved, that I think, see, the problem is, I'm just saying, because the whole thing with China, you know, they have like organ harvesters, and they just really, really terrible stuff, like really terrible stuff. How's this here? How's that greater of the whole, other than what I was saying of, I said this in the other video, I don't think I said it now, Ukraine joining NATO is a direct message to Russia, to Putin. We don't care what you say, we don't care about anything, like, we're going to invade Russia. It's like, Russia is strong on their own, but when you have all these other countries teaming up, they're not so strong anymore, right? He will blow everyone to smithereens. He will do that. If you push him to do that. But it's like, people who are in these nuclear safe places, what do you do then? You gotta wait, like, they're gonna be fine. So how do you get them? You have to get them underground. So anyway, not saying that you should do that. I'm just wondering to myself. So anyway, because you have to know where they are. There's no way you don't have intel of where these places are. Most of these higher ranking people probably already know. And they're all talking about it, and drama. Anyway, I think I think there's some sort of discovery and dismantling of some sort of like high level crazy trafficking stuff. I don't know if I mentioned this in my last video. I mentioned in upcoming ones, but I'll tell you again, and I'll say it very briefly, because I said it briefly then too. I really don't want to get into it, but I saw in one of my visions at one point that there's like it's like storage containers. That's how it feels to me. I don't know where they are, if they're underground. It feels underground. But it could just be like surrounded by dirt, like buried. It doesn't have to be far underground, or it could be like in forest, you know? I'm not sure. Where people are like being colonized, like bred and colonized for different things, whether it's like experimental, whether it's starting this, it's not necessarily a new religion, but it's new perception, so that they believe that they're the real society. So there's like a society that exists elsewhere that's cut off from reality, and they're being brainwashed, right? They're like being told one particular thing. So if they were ever released here, it would be like them, it would be essentially like if you told astronauts to go to the moon, and then they went to the moon, and they were told, if they're space aliens, you need to like shoot to kill. So you go, and then there's aliens there, and you're like slaughtering them because you're like, these aliens are gonna kill me, you know. And then the moon beings, like they were told, if anyone, you get what I'm saying? It's like pinning people against each other, because they don't know any better. And it was actually like the ruling people who placed people on the moon and who placed people on Earth, and they're just, you know, goofing around or whatever they're doing. I don't know. Crazy stuff. Yeah. That's very briefly talking about. But anyway, moving on. So I pulled these ahead of time, and I was like, what do we need to know currently? Like, what is it? And I'm gonna block these words because I think they're just distracting me. I don't think that has anything really necessarily to do with it. Kind of, but not really. I'm gonna pull one more. I mean, I'll just show you these two, since I feel somewhat drawn. We have Keepers of the Earth and Lemuria, creating heaven on earth. It's happening. You're not alone. Ancient ancestors stand beside you. So I do feel like there's a lot of divine guidance and protection, and I feel like it's not just the world having eyes on this particular thing that's happening, but a lot of angelic beings. That was the advice that I'm asking, is heart guardian, love and let yourself be loved. So it's holding space for people. Be open to healing information. 2 guardians, heart guardian, medicine guardian, and then this is the same one that came out in the last reading, which is follow the voice of your soul. So that is obviously very significant. And then the last one is another guardian, which is the magic guardian, unlock the magic within. And this reminds me of, it's an archangel, but I can't remember who it is. This archangel, you'll see where he was holding this. I was in the Putin video. That's what that reminds me of. And then this came out once again, which is the star ancestor. So again, following the voice of your soul. So it's following your intuitive nudges, and coming from a place of peace, coming from a place of understanding everyone, and trying to evaluate all the information that you're gathering, whether it's from your intuition or it's from honestly, it's like tuning into your heart. Like, it's kind of doing a full body scan of yourself and feeling where any tension lies, anywhere that feels kind of like tough or frustrating. So whether it's in your mind that you're holding tension, your chakras, we can think of it as like your chakras too, where it's like above your head, your throat, your chest, your stomach, so on and so forth. And then trying to kind of like feel like you're healing it or releasing tension from there. And so information can come through a lot quicker, a lot easier, and have it being healing information, right? Having it being information that when you look at the information, you hear the information, how does this benefit the greater good, right? What is this information, and why are you being told this? Because this information, these voices, or whatever you're feeling, you know, whether it's a voice or it's just that intuitive nudge to either further investigate something, talk to someone, or think further on something, that is you being guided, right? That's you being guided because there's obviously something there, right? And then from there, sorry, I'm getting distracted. The birds are going crazy, absolutely crazy. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I don't even know what I was saying anymore, but basically, this reminds me of that passion card too. That was in the last reading. I think this is also saying, because this kind of reminds me of a young Putin. Interestingly enough, it reminds me of a young Putin. And I feel like it's identifying where his core values are. Like, where does his heart lie, right? And trying to identify or recognize whether he's being honest or not, which I truly believe that he is. He's not messing around, he's being serious. And I think he's fully aware of the atrocities that are happening even within America. That, you know, yeah, we are privileged. America is extremely privileged, but at the same time, we're running ourselves into the ground. We aren't. I mean, we are, but it's almost like, how can you blame us, right? It's like, I hear people complain about kids and how they don't want to work, which is like very frustrating, because that is true. It's very hard to find people who actually want to work sometimes. But then where did they learn that from? Where did they learn that type of value from? From you, from the person who's complaining about it, like the parents. But can you blame the parents? How were the parents raised, right? And how were their parents raised? It's like corruption upon, you have to break that cycle. You have to break it. And like actually realize that you're being traumatized, right? Like the traumatized don't know that. And sometimes when they do, then they start lashing out and all these other problems occur. So it's not an easy fix. But I feel like there's some, like, even with this, it's kind of like he's rewriting the future. He's rewriting history. We're living in an extraordinarily historical time. Extraordinarily historical. And so, find if there's a message of peace in what he's doing, or what is, just figure out what's going on, because I think that is a lot more, the intention is a lot more peaceful than the way that it's perceived. Not to mention, did I talk about the Nazis that are actually in Ukraine? Like, they're actually in Ukraine, that were placed in there. They were already living in there, but then it's like full force actual Nazis. And I think that's why, this is my, I don't know what I would call this. This is not my idea, it's someone else's idea. I don't know. This is just me guessing. They started this whole thing about Trump being a Nazi, and then how these truckers are Nazis or whatever it is, in order to delude the word Nazi, right? Because he's not a Nazi. The truckers are not a Nazi. In fact, they're both well-intentioned people. In order for when this information comes out, because this has been going on since at minimum 2014. It's always been going on, but it's been like exploding there. And it's also being pushed by the US. But and there's a lot of, anyway, because, you know, we took a lot of those Nazis here. We placed them all over the world, but we took care of those Nazis, right? Because obviously they are, you know, for a government, whether you're crooked or not, they are of some benefit. So they made agreements like, we will keep you safe, we will change your identity, we'll do all this if you come stay with us, right? They wanted the Nazis, scientists and doctors, they wanted them. So, and pass that information down, right? So anyway, I think that has something to do with it, is this Nazi terminology is so that when that information that they can project is happening anyway, that they can just kind of throw that term all over the place and think that when Putin or anyone applies that it's just the equal, where, oh, they don't really mean it, or, oh, they're the ones, and throwing it all around. Why the heck would Putin be a Nazi? Come on now. That is ridiculous. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe that's true, right? I have no idea. I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm not pro either one. Again, like, I wish there was a more peaceful way of handling this. This is not okay. And I feel really bad. Well, I feel bad for the civilians. I feel bad for the civilians, and I feel bad for people who are in the military that don't want to be there. I feel bad for everyone who does not want to be involved in this. That's not fair. There's a lot of fate involved. Because you saw my last one, it is the same thing. It's a lot of fate. So interesting. Very interesting. Oh, so this is what I feel is we should know is it's kind of like breaking out of your comfort zone is what I see. And outside of your comfort zone, it might seem overwhelming at first. It might feel like it's too much to deal with, or it's just a lot, right? But beyond that, like, that's what I see is like, this is the comfort zone, right? This building right here is the comfort zone. This is where they're familiar, and they've kind of made it into something really extraordinary and beautiful. And from within there, you can look outside. Like, it's safe to look. It's like if you had a house in the bush, and it's like, it's nice to look at all the little grizzly bears, but I don't want to go out there because they're gonna eat me. And then it's saying, like, go out and explore and enjoy yourself. You're going to be pleasantly surprised. It seems really scary and frightening, and there are some dangers that are lurking if you're not paying attention, right? You can follow the light of the moon, right? When it's really bright outside in the moon, you can follow that pathway. You're not going to trip on anything. If you're careful and you're diligent, then it can work out, and it's actually very, very exciting and beautiful. And then I see this as being beyond those obstacles, beyond your fear. It's like exciting at first, it's liberating at first, but then you come up to the realities of how much work entails. But when you go through that and you persevere, it's like the cactus, right? The cactus, for the most part, right? I mean, for me, they take a long time to grow. You see how tall they are, right? And they're nutritious too. They're gorgeous. But that's essentially what I see is with us, is like you kind of develop a hard shell, like a protective shell, but it's in a good way. It's a proper defense mechanism that is not overboard, you know, for all the glory that's within there. And yeah, it might take some time, but the payoff is wonderful. And so as you pass by there, look at how peaceful this is. Look how beautiful this is. And you see there's a rose here, and there's roses here, and she's releasing the petals. And so that's kind of where I see it's like you will get to, it's interesting because this rose garden, I feel like this is really prophetic. This rose garden, it's like, it's something to do with, where's that? The ancient ancestors one, the card, or the keepers of the earth. It's like you connect with the keepers of the earth, like you connect with the ancient wisdom. It's like tuning into that somehow. When you get past this, you tune into that. And it puts everyone in some sort of like, it's like everyone connects. Everyone connects. It's interesting because you think about like the power of prayer, right? And how that actually works. You know, you have groups of people who will pray, and it ends up that people kind of energetically feel that around that area that they're praying. And even if you're like, if you're not with that group of people praying, like if you're not in church or wherever you are, it's very interesting. There's something really deep that's happening on a global level here. And I think it's even like connecting, like you can connect to the people that are in these war-torn areas. You can connect to the people that are struggling, and through prayer or through meditation and through going out beyond your comfort zone and challenging yourself and following a scary, seemingly difficult, but a lot easier than you'll realize, and a lot more rewarding. Like that's really rewarding. I'm not gonna say it's more rewarding because everything has its place, right? That had its place for some time, but now it's time to challenge yourself and push out beyond those boundaries, right? You've had all this time to kind of gain strength building this building, to gain wisdom gaining this building, appreciation. You were able from this building to watch the way that bears interact with each other. So there's a lot that you were able to gain from that. So it's not all pointless. There was definitely a point to that. But now it's going beyond that. And yeah, I'm getting distracted again because those dang cockatiels. I don't know what's going on with them. I think they just probably want some sunshine or something, or attention. I have no idea. I'm going to take this in an optimistic way, that because here's the thing, it's like I'm just thinking, like, when you think about it, I don't know, I said it in the last video, so I don't have to repeat myself about that, but it's like they're just not going to expect what's coming for them. And by they, like, who are you talking about? I'm talking about, at this point, I'm talking about evil people in powerful positions. So that's not picking any side for anything. It's literally someone who has evil intentions, who has bad intentions for their people and for other people, like genuinely bad intentions through and through. I think they're going to be shocked. Because you see here, he's setting up the scarecrow. He's setting up a decoy without even realizing they're coming up from behind. They're too busy setting up the decoy to not realize that it's happening behind them. They're not paying attention. They're too one-track mind. And even in here, it's like it kind of feels, it feels like they like I'm constantly saying that, but they're overplaying their hand. You think, like, the seasons come and go. We have, I don't know if everyone has 4 seasons, but that's just the way it works. That's just the way it is. That's how life is set up. It comes and goes. And the wheel, I feel like, I mean, it's the same thing. It's a perpetual thing. Nothing can stop that. And it's kind of like nothing can stop fate. Nothing can stop destiny. Nothing can stop the goodwill of people. And you don't even have to be like believing in any kind of God that's like the supreme being. Like, you just be a decent person, right? And that will always rule out. That's just the way it is. And try as you might, for people who are fake, like fake people, they'll always get revealed, right? All the time. You know, it'll start not making sense. Like, when people are fake people, or they try and like talk bad about someone who's genuine. I'm gonna compare it to Jesus, right? All these people who are talking bad about Jesus and saying all these horrible things about him, like, the truth came out, right? Like, it always ends up revealing itself, and it starts to stop making sense when someone's not doing anything, or if they're doing something, it's like, well, why? Like, don't you want to know why? And I'm talking about everything involved. I'm talking about Russia, I'm talking about and everything else, like, just in general that we need to know. It's like, people are going to start wondering why. Not just people in powerful positions, but even people around. Like, we're going to start studying each other and being like, why do you think that? Or why? And you think, like, this man, like, he had to set this decoy up because he can't, this field is too big, right? There are way too many, it's too many acreage for him to cover as one person. He needs a decoy. But crows are so intelligent. They are so intelligent. And I think that's the spirit of the people. We're way too intelligent. It's only a temporary thing. I think that's why they're freaking scrambling over everything, is because they do not want to lose their spot. What does that mean for them? They're gonna go away for life. Some of these people would go away for life. And worse than that. Yeah. Basically, I think he's going to give it his all. I'm going back to Russia now. I think this is indicating, like, he's going to give it his all. And that's not I'm not saying in a violent way. I'm saying in the spirit of Russia, in doing his best to preserve and to keep those promises of keeping them safe. He will do his best. And it's kind of like, I'm just hearing, like, I present to you. That's what I'm hearing. I present to you. And so that's very interesting. It's kind of like introducing someone new. There's going to be something else on top of this that's going to surprise everyone. But see, I don't know what would be released and what wouldn't, but it's like, I'm presenting this to you. And people are going to be shocked. I believe that the advice for everyone is again to just push past your fears. Push past your fears. Push past your comfort zone and be strong. Like, to me, this release is releasing all that tension that I was talking about. Releasing all that tension, releasing all of those places where you feel very volatile and very restrictive. Allow things to move gracefully, like the weeping willow and how that moves and how the leaves, like, you don't have to be meticulous about picking up every leaf, right? Like, you don't have to overanalyze yourself and be overly perfect or know everything, just as long as you just allow it to come in, as long as you allow yourself to be available to this information, and you allow yourself to learn and grow from this. Everything has its own place, right? Like, these leaves, they will turn into compost or a safety net for tadpoles, right? There's a purpose to that. You don't have to adhere to what you think that other people will. Now the birds are they're flying around like crazy, and now I hear them on the other side of the house. It's like a little echo. I don't know if you can hear them. Oh boy. And I also feel like it's saying to take a step back from taking a stance. And that goes for me too, like, and well, it goes for for everything. It's okay to be neutral. It's okay to say and sit back and say, I'm not gonna pick a decision for anything right now until I feel it's right. Until I get the information that I want. But I'm open to talk about it, you know, like, I'm open to letting these petals fall where they may, and, you know, go with it. And even with this releasing, it's like releasing restrictive thoughts, releasing maybe anywhere that we've been, we've heard our own types of propaganda. Look at that, temperance. It's so wild to think, like, all these, like, to me, these are all fate. To me, this always indicates fate. And there's so much of, like, the changing of the seasons. There's a huge significance to changing of the seasons. But I also feel like it's a changing of, like, it's just time. It's just time to make a major change in the world. But anyway, that's it. I'm just looking at these other cards. I'll pull one more just for fun, then we'll stop. Be the light, move in a new direction, and trust in higher forces, and learn from spiritual experiences. So there's the bird and butterfly again, if you watch my Putin video, and 2 owls. So that's essentially, I think that's self-explanatory, right? This is kind of like a roadmap. There's a roadmap there, and essentially it's everything that I've pretty much said is like, I wonder what countries are in there. Yeah, that's it. All right, bye guys.